What is up, YouTubers, and welcome back to episode 2 of the gun saga, and talking about the laws and how I feel about it and the facts about it and just the way things work. Again, I'm not trying to make any partisanship here. I'm definitely not going to be bipartisan. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to explain the facts, and I'm going to give you guys some examples. Now, again, the best teacher is experience. So if you have an experience or a possibility in a safe environment, if you have never shot a firearm, to go test it for yourself and have a look. You don't even have to fire it. To go have a look at a firearm, or to study them and look at it. Look at them objectively right in front of you. I would advise that. You should probably have a look into it. Never take the media's word at face value, or anybody on the news or anybody on TV for that matter. You should always check for yourself. You should always educate yourself. We live in a free society, remember, and so we get the opportunity to check things out for ourselves. Don't listen to the crowd, and definitely don't beat to one drum or be a lemming. The last thing you need to do is to give up your rights because of some ignorance or something like that. That being said, we're going to be talking about gun laws and the arguments, some of the arguments. We're going to be addressing a few of them for the sake of it. Now, the main idea today is about, should we ban guns, or should we ban guns or keep them, or just get rid of the idea of guns completely. Now, on the conservative side and the NRA, they would believe you to have some sort of training, some sort of things. A lot of the time they're mischaracterized as racist, gun-toting hicks, but the vast majority of us aren't. Now, I'm not a part of the NRA, and I don't know that I ever will be, but as a gun owner, I can say that they're using a lot of common sense rule of thumb when it comes to firearms, and yet they would have you believe otherwise in the media. Now, why is that? Well, guns, as far as everything goes, are in our culture. They saturate movies, they saturate television, and more often than not, they saturate the streets with blood. Now, why is that? Was it the firearm's fault? In the previous video, I explained that this magazine cannot load my rifle, and it couldn't possibly shoot somebody without human assistance. Now, I want you to look at this objectively. Again, like I said, I'm a gun owner. I've never hurt somebody, and I don't want to. I want to make friends, and I would love to make videos like this for the rest of my life. I'd love to inform people, because frankly, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. All that stuff doesn't last forever. Pretty soon there's probably going to be a new party or a new way of thinking, and in reality, what's it good for to be carrying a card like that? Why not just be friends? With that being said, are guns inherently bad? Now, this has been thrown around that firearms have killed a lot of people, but so have swords. Remember, firearms are relatively effective firearms, I would say. Firearms that are, combat effective, haven't been around that long. And in the grand scheme of things, sticks, stones, clubs, improvised arrows, and swords have been around a lot longer and have slaughtered a lot more people. And let me tell you something. I would a lot rather be shot than cut in half or stabbed with a sword. Believe me, as a guy who's been stabbed before, I can tell you, I couldn't imagine being stabbed to death. Now, that's just my personal belief. I don't know what it is to be shot, but I know that it's pretty quick in comparison when it comes to dying. Gosh, it sounds so morbid. But anyway, should we ban guns? Well, of course not. Well, why, you would ask? Why would you not want to ban guns? They kill people. Well, so do Twinkies. So do cars. So does alcohol. So do drugs. I know, because I was addicted to painkillers for a while. I locked myself in a room and I got the heck over it. I prayed. I had the love of my family and the support, and I got myself through it through training, so to speak. Did I hurt anybody? Absolutely not. Did I want to hurt anybody? No, because this was a trial I had to get through. With that being said, there are a lot of things that hurt us, a lot of things that kill us. But the number one thing that kills us is our own human heart. Now, I'm not saying that, you're going to have a heart attack because that happens. But the vast majority of us kill each other for the silliest reasons. Now, in my belief, being a Christian, I believe that pride is the befalling of all men. Pride is deceitful. Pride is boastful. Pride makes you do stupid things in passion and in anger. Pride makes your emotions think first before your logic. And pride can often make it seem like you're the only one that's right, and everybody else that isn't on your same page is an idiot, or a fool, or a hypocrite, or a bigot. We've seen this before. Any logical, non-partisan person understands this. I don't belong to either side. Yes, I lean a little more conservative, but that's just because I agree with some of the things they do. Do I believe we should take care of our widows and orphans? Absolutely. But we have to do it appropriately, and we have to take our time to make sure that people are properly taken care of. You don't fix a hole in the boat with duct tape for long without noticing that the hole is going to start leaking again. You weld it shut like a good person. Now, a lot of people say that we should ban guns, but in reality, it's not the guns they want to ban. This was a good friend of mine who wasn't necessarily a gun-friendly person, but he said, it's not that they want to ban the guns, it's that they want them to go away so this doesn't happen anymore. And yes, in a world without firearms, this sort of thing would happen. It wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be shootings, there wouldn't be anything like that. But at the end of the day, people would still kill each other. Cain killed Abel with a stone. People are stabbed to death all the time. People are bludgeoned to death all the time. Firearms, by a lot of hitmans, I talked to a reformed hitman, but firearms are messy. Firearms make splatter. Firearms make a lot of noise. There's a lot of easier ways to take someone's life. As a matter of fact, after the Sandy Hook situation, which was an absolute tragedy, and peace be to those families, because good Lord, they need it. A man in China went on a killing spree, killed more children than the guy at Sandy Hook with a combat knife. A combat knife's only about that long, about a foot, let's say a foot. It's a very close quarters weapon. That's the close quarters combat knife. And yet, you really didn't see much of that in the news. Death is a tragedy no matter how you look at it. We're humans. We're destined to die. But sometimes bad people will get in their head that some people need to get on the express lane to death, which is wrong. Absolutely. I think when you become a terrorist or anything like that, you forfeit your humanity and you forfeit a trial. You're a bad guy. Well, that being said, here in America, we do need that because some people could be, said that they're terrorists, but they're actually not. But that's a whole other can of worms. With that being said, banning assault weapons is pretty much already done. Like I said in the previous video, it is incredibly hard to get a hold of a military-grade assault rifle, but a semi-automatic rifle is not an assault rifle. It does not have selective fire. You could not storm a beach with a select fire rifle under most circumstances today in modern technology. Now, back in the day when they had M1 Garands and Springfields and Thompsons and stuff, that would have been plausible. But today, there are a lot of very, very advanced firearms today. Some of them can fire so fast you can't even blink, but they're mostly just set on the ground and then you sit back with the control because they're too big and heavy. With that being said, why is it that firearms, people want to get rid of them? Well, because they're scary? Because they're black and they look military? Well, I looked at a video a long time ago that showed a rifle with a walnut stock, everything like that, and they're like, oh, that's a hunting rifle. But as soon as there was a black veneer on it, or this black polymer finish on it, oh, it was an assault rifle. Well, actually, they were the same rifle exactly. The difference was the coating. You see, the assault rifle stigma comes from views, the way it looks, and the way it could possibly function provided heavy modification. Again, the mass majority of bad guys out there are not going to be, good guys are not going to be able to get an assault rifle. But that does not imply that a bad guy wouldn't be able to get a hold of one. I want to cite the Prohibition era when we got rid of alcohol. Alcohol was made illegal, and yet the mob and all these cartels and dangerous people and even alcohol runners, hillbillies, people out there who are making moonshine, still made alcohol. As a matter of fact, a remnant of the alcohol running days is still a major sport in our country. It's called NASCAR. It is, I guess, a statue of what the culture of alcohol running used to be. It was illegal, but that doesn't imply that a person can't make their own firearm. They can't do all this. I mean, the first firearm was literally a lead pipe with stones stuffed down it with a powder in it. To say that firearms need to be illegalized and they'll just go away is completely ignorant. Because A, they just won't go away, and there are people out there that can easily make them, including terrorists, which have been busted in the Gaza Strip for doing so, and making firearms to kill innocent Palestinians and Jews. This is a thing, and that's just one isolated case. There are all kinds of gangsters, gang members, cartel leaders, drug lords that have made their own firearms or have bought them on the black market. See, that's what the alcohol trade was back then. It was the black market. Now, you may make it impossible for me to buy a gun, but that doesn't mean a bad guy can't just go down on the 405, hop into a bad neighborhood, and get a handgun dumped in a greasy old trash bag with the serial number scraped off. You can't trace it, no one knows where it came from, because in reality, people that break the law are going to do it whether you like it or not. That's why they're in jail, because they broke the law and they didn't care. That's why people that get away with it are repeat offenders, because they don't care. The man's law doesn't mean anything to them. That's why people do meth. I mean, there's no real incentive to do meth, and yet people do it. So banning firearms isn't going to solve the problem, because again, there will always be a black market. There will always be bad guys. I mean, I think by all standards in the United States, the two things that are hated the most by United States citizens are racism and pedophilia. And yet both of those things still happen. Morally speaking, they're pretty much outlawed. If you're a racist, you're going to get called out on. They're going to crucify you, nail you right to the cross. And when it comes to pedophilia, oh, you might as well be a dead man, because I guarantee you half the population would skin you alive. I mean, look at Jared. He's in prison, and everyone wants to kill him. With that being said, it still happens. Well, why is that? Well, it's because some people are bad. They're generally evil people. They hate. They're evil. They want to do wrong on other people because they get some sort of jollies out of it. It's disgusting. Now, after the recent Orlando shooting, which I made a video about, and I was pretty angry, and I have to apologize for that, I did find out that a reporter, as of recently, I want to get his name correct, because I want to make sure you guys understand. Now, Neil Steinberg, of the Chicago Sun-Times, wanted to demonstrate how easy it was to buy an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, which he called an assault rifle. Now, upon his application, like I had to do in Kansas, where the gun laws are a little more slack, everybody has to do this to get a rifle or handgun. There's a waiting period of, I believe, 2 days here in Kansas, plus the shipping, which takes time as well. But there's a waiting period, and you also have a background check, and I had to do several background checks, including my Social Security, my background, everything. Of course, it came out clean because I'm a good boy, and I try to stay out of trouble. Say no to drugs, kids. But Mr. Steinberg's application was rejected for the rifle because his background check revealed that he had alcohol abuse history and that he had spousal abuse history admitted by him after beating his wife, assault and battery, and domestic violence after alcohol abuse. So they wouldn't let him buy a firearm. And this was in Illinois, where some of the strictest gun laws are enforced, and yet the most people die. Well, of course, any logical person will go, well, why are they dying? Well, it's because there's a lot of gangs in Illinois. There are a lot of dangerous people in Illinois. There wouldn't be, if everyone just followed the law, there wouldn't be drug trafficking. There wouldn't be people slinging crack. Those communities would be holding hands together and marching against the evils of things like that. Because togetherness is more important than partisanship. We need to come together under the understanding that these people on television are lying. It is difficult to get a firearm, because if you don't pass the background checks that are already here, those common sense gun laws they're talking about are already in existence. It's just, they're trying to push a narrative that's even worse. You see, it's just like those bills that they pass that have multi-levels, and I've talked about this before. You see the thing that you want, but here's the real stuff that's going to happen below it, and it's between pages of nonsense. But once that gets passed, it's law. And whatever's on that is law. That's how it happens. And it's the same thing with these common sense gun law bans. They're not wanting to make sure that good people have it, they're just wanting to get rid of them in general. The problem is it doesn't make any sense to get rid of them when there are still bad guns on the street and there's still bad guys with guns. You see, you can get an AK if you want to. If you really want to, you can surpass and circumvent the law. While there will be consequences, the vast majority of the people that do it get them. And they do use them, illegally, I might add. Now, some people will get a rifle from their parents, or they will steal one, or they will even buy one. If you don't have confirmed history, well, of course, no one's going to know that you're crazy and you're about to go shoot a place up. These sort of laws are not, a wall. They're like a net. Sometimes fishes will get through. Sometimes people will die. That's the world we live in. And until we can solve mental health, we're not going to solve anything. Because in reality, you're not going to stop a shooter if you don't know their heart. And you can't read the heart and the soul and the mind of somebody. That's just not realistic. So if I walked up and you say, well, you look mental, or, well, I don't want to give you a firearm. Well, that's not fair. I've never even broken a law in my life. and yet I'm being judged for that. So what's the bottom line? And if we pigeonhole people and say, well, you're not allowed to buy this because we're suspicious of you, well, you're just saying that everybody here that isn't allowed to own a firearm is technically an undesirable. Oh, you can't own a firearm because you're not trusted. Well, Adolf Hitler did something very similar. As these people in society that we can't get rid of, we might as well exterminate. Well, that's the only solution that I can even think of that would be possible, but that's morally wrong. That's evil. Just killing somebody for the sake of killing them in the name of a preemptive strike to purify your land to make sure this never happens again is just as bad as those murderers, let me tell you something about that. And to be honest, these laws, again, are like a net. Sometimes things get through. Not every fish is a big tuna. Sometimes we got guppies swimming through the net. You cannot stop murder. You cannot stop Jeffrey Dahmer's, or John Wayne Gacy's, or Dylan Roof's, or Adam Lanza's, or Adolf Hitler's, or Joseph Stalin's, or Pol Pot's. You cannot stop them because they blend in just like the rest of us. They wear glasses, they take leaks, they take poops, they eat at your favorite restaurant, they buy cars, they go home, some of them have families. Sometimes bad people just do bad things out of nowhere for no apparent reason. But if we take guns away from people like the Nazis did, and say that, well, that could never happen again, we are ignoring all of history, like these people kind of want you to forget. That's the only logical conclusion I can get to, people. While it may not happen, it is a possibility. It is Murphy's Law. What can happen can possibly or will happen. What if our president doesn't like firearms, our next president being Hillary, Trump, or Bernie? What if they want to get rid of guns and they outlaw them? Would you, the liberal or the conservative, be willing to pick up a firearm and fight with me to stop these evil people from, let's say, putting someone in an extermination camp, if that ever happened, again, hypothetically? Would you be willing to apologize and say, I'm so sorry for being ignorant? See, a firearm is not the problem. It's the heart of the people. It's the heart of Adolf Hitler, and why he disarmed his people so that no one could stand against him. And the people that did, he slaughtered and killed. That's what Project Valkyrie was about. It was taking him down. And they failed, and they were all killed. That's what they do. That's what bad people do. And we should never be so arrogant to believe that that can't happen today because it's happened in the past for several thousand years. Don't ever be so ignorant to believe that your government can't do bad things. Well, I'm sure there are good-hearted people there. There could be some bad ones in there too. Just like those shooters, just like bad people in churches, just like bad people in companies, there are bad people. For whatever reason, whatever belief, whatever walk of life, there are going to be bad apples in the bunch. Just the same thing with Islamic terrorism. Not all Muslims are bad people, but there are some bad apples in the bunch, and they need to be dealt with, and bombed, and destroyed, so that the other people can't die because of their actions. Another thing I want to talk about is gun-free zones. Now, you're going to hear a lot of arguments on both sides saying, well, a gun-free zone makes sure that people don't die. Or it makes sure that there's not a possibility there. Well, there's a yes and no to that. I would agree to some degree on that. Now, when it comes to kids, or a gun-free zone, there are plenty of veterans out there that have sufficient training to protect you and your people, and everybody out there. They're homeless, they don't get to eat, they die alone. Some of them don't get medical care. Why not arm them? They would be more than happy to protect people that don't deserve to die. They'd be more than happy to protect our children. And they would give them a job and a purpose in life again. And I guarantee you those shooters wouldn't stand a chance against a trained Navy SEAL that retired, or against a trained Afghanistan veteran, provided they pass a mental health check. They would be more than happy to stop those bad guys. So why aren't we employing that? If it is a gun-free zone, well, that's too common sense. That would cost money. Well, let me tell you something. I'd give the government myself $100 that I know I can't afford to spend to know that some people would be safe. With that being said, the Pink Pistols made a great example of saying, fire back. This is a gay rights group that also believes in the Second Amendment and a lot of more conservative views. They said that every gay person should be allowed to own a firearm. As a matter of fact, every man, woman, and a consenting adult should be allowed to own a firearm, as far as I'm concerned. And if you have a problem with that, or you don't want to own a firearm, that's your business. But at the same time, you don't speak for everybody. Just because you yell and yip the loudest does not imply that you are going to be over these people. Your voice does not intend that you are going to be over them, or you're more powerful than them, or that your voice means more than theirs. Some people don't like to be loud about their beliefs. Some people don't like to make YouTube videos or do anything of that sort. Some people just say, this is my right, this is the way it is. And that's why I believe that every man and woman out there should be allowed to own a firearm. And yes, there are already background checks. I go through them myself. I live in a red state, as I listed before, where there are background checks for all sorts of firearms. They make sure that you're not a dangerous person. That being said, there are going to be bad people. With that being said, these gun-free zones are very dangerous because, who was it? The young man that shot up the Baptist church was going to shoot up at the Charleston University, but he did say in a actual phone call that it was too dangerous, too risky, because he might get killed too quickly because of the armed guards on that university. And he went to the black church because it was gun-free, because he was also a racist, and he was very dangerous. He was a prejudiced, evil human being. With that being said, he went to where people wouldn't defend themselves. And even he hesitated a little bit because they were so sweet to him. And God rest their souls. But the idea is there are bad people out there that will use all sorts of underhanded, sneaky tactics to get to their goal, be it doom, death, or infamy. Who knows? But in reality, making a gun-free zone in a country where guns should be allowed to be owned, it's our Second Amendment right, is silly. Under the premise that you're upset because you don't like firearm culture, well, that shouldn't be the reason why you have it. It's for personal defense. That's it. Of course some people shoot for fun at targets or go skeet shooting or do those little tournaments and stuff, and that's fine. That's their own business. Or even put food on the table. But then again, that's really not your business to say what is okay and what isn't. Now, as long as you're not going out and killing people and taking lives and, trying to be the best killer in the world, I'm okay with you having a firearm, frankly. But if you're going around and, doing all these bad things, you should never have a firearm. And there are plenty of laws that make it to where you can't, just like that reporter I listed before that couldn't get a firearm. If you're going to kill people, you don't need a firearm. If you're not going to and you're just a good, regular, average person, you should have one. Liberal or Democrat, conservative or Republican, or whatever you are allowed to. But don't let your opinions or your beliefs infringe upon the other people that believe they should, because you don't know their situation. I've lived in bad neighborhoods, and I wish I had a gun at the time, but I wasn't old enough, because there are bad people out there. And let me tell you something. A shooting only lasts about 6 seconds. The average national police response time is 6 minutes. You're already dead and bleeding out, and most people die within a minute of being shot in vital areas. Unvital areas, they could survive in about 30 minutes. But that's not a lot of time for error. Those police have to get there. Then they have to call the ambulance if they aren't already on the way. You should have the right to defend yourself. The final point I want to talk about is the magazine. Why do you need so much? Well, a lot of people say, well, it's for hunting. Well, you don't need that much. Well, in reality, in war, my cousin would tell me that they would fire and sometimes they'd miss because they get the jitters. Your hand shakes. You can miss a lot of rounds. Maybe 1 out of every 10 rounds you shoot at somebody is going to hit, because there's something in our heads that says when you're even fighting a bad guy, you could be a card-carrying terrorist, sometimes you miss because you're scared, because that person is trying to kill you and you have to kill them back. Well, if you're in a house and you're at close quarters and a guy has a gun pointed at you, I'm going to be ducking and firing over my couch. I'm not going to know where, if the bullet's going to hit him or the floor or whatever. But I want to make sure to shoot as many at him to take him down before he kills me. If he has 9 rounds in his handgun and I've got 30 in my magazine, that's fine, because at least I know I'll have the edge over him. I would say in a defensive term, that's better, because you never know. That guy could be wearing body armor. It's incredibly easy to get body armor because, well, people do get shot at sometimes, and some dignitaries have to get it. I have a trauma plate just in case of an extreme event or something like that, or a food riot, and sometimes riots happen. Well, again, that's crazy to some people that think you never need that. Well, you never know. Well, that being said, some robbers know that there are people with firearms, and they'll come in with the appropriate armor. The good thing about the .223 is it tends to tumble and stop inside the body once it hits a solid mass. whereas bigger rounds tend to keep going and hurt somebody. That's the last thing I want, and that's why I buy 223s. Ballistically speaking, they tend to break apart in the body, and they don't tend to keep going. Under unnatural circumstances, they will. Now, with that said, sometimes you're going to miss. Unless you're absolutely a battle-hardened soldier or criminal, most people are going to miss every time they shoot. Or they're going to miss during a combat, what I would say, a dangerous scenario. Let's just call it a dangerous scenario. Most people are going to miss. They're going to get those jitters. If every cop was a great shot every time, we really wouldn't have as many criminals as we do in firefights. The vast majority is once that adrenaline starts going, and once those muscles tighten, you start shaking a lot, you're not going to hit everything. It's one thing to go to the practice round and targets and shoot at somebody. It's a whole other thing to be in a shooting scenario. And I've been in one of those scenarios where I was being shot at. And I'll tell you, I was scared to death and my hands couldn't stop trembling. Well, how do you think those police officers feel? Or those soldiers? Or anybody in general feels when they're in a firefight? First times are always tough. With that being said, there's a lot of reasons to have this. But at the same time, no one should ever be able to tell me how much I should have. Sure, those bad guys had them, but again, that's like 1 in 1 million people, or an even smaller statistic that have done that. I'm not seeing the reality of this, the question they're asking, to get rid of the guns. Or, I can't have this magazine. Sure, this is a big magazine, but again, this has been loaded and like this, sitting separate from my gun, which is locked up, for a long time. It hasn't gone off, it hasn't hurt anybody. If anything, it's just been a good letter weight for all my bills. With that being said, just because you feel the way about a magazine doesn't imply that your beliefs, like I said, go over mine. They overlap mine, because my rights are just as important to me as your rights are to you. And if you have the right to say something, but you don't have the right to infringe when it comes to the Second Amendment. That being said, there are going to be some disagreements. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm just telling you logic behind it. I don't want to create any partisanship. And to quote George Washington on his thoughts about this, he talked about the Second Amendment. He's like, all citizens should have the right to bear arms. That being said, he did go on further. Again, this is the founder of our country. He explained the Second Amendment by saying, and this is his words, that the people should have sufficient firearms and ammunition to combat their current government. What does that mean? Well, no, that disproves the whole, well, you should only be allowed to have muskets. No, but if the government has miniguns, we should be allowed to have them too, because let's say you get a lunatic in office, or a bad ideology, or a crazy despot in office, which again could happen, or there are bad guys coming across our border in a war, we should be allowed to fight for ourselves. Shoot, I think it was Hirohito said, making landfall in America during World War II would be the worst thing ever, because in America, there's a gun behind every blade of grass, because Americans would come together and we would stomp them. I think about those two people and I realize that we're very blessed to be able to have this opportunity. And I know this video is running really long, but I had to make these points, and I had to make this video to tell you guys, because I'm just sick to death of hearing of these things on TV and seeing these people say ignorant things that they have no idea about. And these people I actually know. And these people I respect to some degree. But again, stop taking things for face value. Do your own research, please. Again, you either own a firearm in America or you're a slave. Have a good day. I love you, and I will see you in the next video.